I want to save up for down payment, or I'm saving up for a wedding, or whatever. Find your why, because your why will get you through the day.
So the big question is, what are the top agents doing to absolutely crush it in real estate, grow their teams, and add more transactions year over year while so many struggle? If you ever thought about this, you're not alone. No one has been able to get the answers until now.
We spent the last few years helping agents sell billions in real estate, rubbing shoulders with top producers, which got us thinking, how can we expose more people to these insights to help raise the standard in the whole real estate industry? We then realized that we could help bridge the gap by getting the secrets from the best of the best so that you can succeed. My name is Andrew Dunn.
And my name is Peter Michael. Welcome to Elite Agent Secrets.
Barry, what's number two?
So the number two one that I like, and this one's pretty easy, and especially in our market right now, is basically calling landlords or people that have investment properties is a really, really big one, like massive, because whether or not, Craigslist, find any place that you can find places for rent, right? So you come in, I basically just call them and say, it's Brad Vanderwall. And then I say, I run one of the top teams in Calgary. You have a lot of buyers in your area, whatever the area is. I'm like, have you ever thought of selling your rental? And that's it. A lot of people are like, oh my God, what do I say and what do I do? Well, I'm just asking if they want to sell a house. And the cool thing about having them, if they say yes, is that you go ahead and they don't have a place that they have to go to. So right now in our market, it's like, well, I'd sell, but where would I go? Well, that alleviates that. And then somebody actually, props, I don't remember who it was. I think it was actually Shane. He actually said, and this is something too, if they're like, nah, I'm not really thinking about it. It's like, great. Do you want to buy another investment property? Right? You already have somebody that's an investor on the line. Maybe you don't have anybody, but maybe they're like, yeah, you want to what? I'm looking for a 6-plex now, or I'm looking for an 8-plex. So if they're sitting there and they're saying, no, they don't want to buy, or they don't want to sell, ask them if they want to buy, which is huge. And one of the objections that I love, it's like, no, I really wouldn't sell. It's like, so if I brought you a full price offer tomorrow, you wouldn't sell your home. And a lot of people are like, well, what's a full price offer? And then that gets you into like, okay, I got to come by and get an idea. But a lot of people, here's the thing is a lot of people aren't paying attention to the market as much as us as real estate agents. A lot of people know maybe the market's gone up, but I actually look at it as I think I'm doing somebody a service is if I come in, let's say I get a guy on the phone that's 60 years old and he wants to retire at 65. Let's say his place, he bought it for 500 and he thinks it's worth 650. What if it's really worth 850? Right? And now this person can maybe retire or do something. You know what I mean? And I genuinely mean that is if you catch the right person, maybe they can take that investment and do something else. So I actually think I'm doing them a favor in some cases, truthfully, because I have had people on the phone say that they were close to retirement. So they were thinking of selling it, but it wasn't quite what they thought. I told them what it was worth. And I'm not saying it's because of me, they can retire by any sense of the imagination, but I bumped it up a little bit because they thought that their place was worth way less and it was way more. So I'll never forget. I had one guy that literally called me, thanked me because he got to retire 2 years earlier because those numbers made sense in the analytics that him and his guy, his retirement, whoever he had came in. So he was able to quit a couple of years early. So I actually think I'm helping people out in the right case too.
Brad, it's funny actually you bring this up because Andrew knows this, but I'm actually going through that exact scenario right now when my landlord was like, hey, you guys love this spot. Do you want to buy it because we want to retire and move into this, this country club, golf course residence? And I'm like, oh, this is a unique opportunity where I can get something that's, priced fairly according to what the market is right now, but maybe a little bit below because of the convenience factor that I'm already here. He knows that we're good people, and they're looking at moving, the path of least resistance. And all it took was just a single conversation, exactly like you explained.
That's huge. There's so many opportunities out there. You just got to looking for it. I think the hardest thing that people have is that the phone feels like it's 100 pounds and I'm there every day. That's the thing though, is it's not like I sit there and I'm like, oh my God, fuck, I get to cold call today. Oh my God. I'm so happy. I can't, no, I've never, ever, ever once said that ever in my life. So it's still work whenever I go and do it. It's just my cold calling skill or all that is flexed so much because I just have the ability to know that if I make the first 2 or 3 calls, that it gets me through. And then I can go for 2 or 3 hours. It's literally making your first 5 calls. If you can get through that hurdle, the rest of the time that you have planned for, it's going to be a lot easier. It's just starting, like anything, right? Like after this, whenever I go to work out on the Peloton, I don't want to go do it. But once I'm in it for 5 or 10 minutes, it's the same thing with a lot of things. You just got to start and just remember. But I think as I was on a show the other day, and I think that part of it too is why you're doing this is ask yourself why. I find that a lot of people will not know why they're doing it. You know, people say vision boards and all this stuff. There's some legitimacy behind it. It's like in your office, when you're making these calls, have a picture of your kids, have a picture of your husband, your wife. If you're doing it for your dog, I don't care if you're a crazy cat lady, you have 47 cats and that's why you're doing it. Like have a reason why you're doing this. And I think that's a big, because if you don't have a why, it's a lot harder, right? It's like, hey, I want to save up for down payment, or I'm saving up for a wedding or whatever. Find your why, because your why will get you through the day. It should.
And it seems like you really don't give a shit about other people's judgment, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter and doesn't pay your bills. Is that right?
Well, that's true. And it's like nobody's, knock on wood, unless they've had a heart attack or something, nobody's died from making a cold call. You know, despite what most agents think, like nobody's going to die. You are going to get told to fuck off a few times. But guess what? If I had to get told to fuck off once or twice a day, but I was selling as many houses, like tell me 100 times. Like, I don't know you and I don't really care. But I think that a lot of agents, well, first of all, I'm in my 40s now, so I really don't care. Like, you know, 20s, you kind of care. 30s, you're like, well, I kind of care. 40s, I can't wait till I'm 50 because I'm probably really not going to care at all. But I think that that's the challenge is some people they're not confident or they're not whatever. You know, YouTube, some great stuff, take some scripting, take some coaching, become more comfortable. And the truth is just take action and you'll find yourself that you'll be a lot better place.
I think it's so true. Like sales is kind of one of these things, like, you know, cold calling and saying no one loves it. It's so true. Like all three of us here, like a big part of our life up to this point has been getting on the phone, right? And there is never a day where I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, I cannot wait. Like, this is the most exciting. It's like, no, it fucking sucks, right? But like, we're here to tell you that everyone thinks it sucks. We're all in the same boat. The difference between the haves and the have-nots is it sucks, but they do it anyway. And the other ones, no, I just can't pick up the phone. And what I like is the fact that all like these things that we're sharing are great. And, you know, you shared that other people haven't done anything with them. The problem is it's that action. It's like that heavy phone. It's the anticipation. It's like, I don't want to be told to fuck off, right? Let's be honest. We've all been cursed out in the worst way. Everyone in our family, deserves the worst stuff because that person's having a bad day. But it's like, in reality, that is actually what got us to get to that next deal, because like having like the forward momentum, like starting something and just going through the motion, irrespective of the outcome short term, because you have that vision long term, will actually drive you to get to the result. That's like vision boards and stuff I believe in. Like, I'm like, this is why I'm doing this. And it helps motivate you. And your vision changes. This is the beautiful thing. Like, you know, you might go, I don't know, I want that Ferrari, or I want a house, or I want a lakeside, cottage, or whatever it is. But when you get there, your vision might change, where it's like, actually, now my vision's freedom to spend time with my son, grandson, whatever. And then you just swap out your pictures. You know, you swap out the board and you still get up the same way. I mean, we all know high producing realtors who have absolutely crushed it. And one of their big things is they now leverage their time to spend more time with their family. They've got to the point where they've achieved their financial income goals. They've now got passive income from other stuff that they've done from scale, whether it's investing. And now they're at the point where actually money's not a thing anymore. Like they've bought what they wanted. They've kind of had their fun. And now it's like, I want to spend time with my son. I want to spend time with my grandkids. I want to just spend quality time with my wife, husband, whatever the case may be. And, you know, what we're saying here really is pick up the phone and call. Like, nothing bad's going to happen. Every day someone's going to say something not very nice to you, probably. But it really doesn't matter, because you can guarantee that person in probably an hour's time, or definitely by tomorrow, completely forgotten. You could call them again. They have no idea. Call them
Dude, it's so funny you bring this up, because literally 9 out of 10 people won't remember that you called them or that they've spoken to you. And I'm going through this right now, where 6 months later, we're following up with certain people and they're like, who are you again? Oh, I don't think we've ever spoke. So no harm, no foul.
No, and they won't. I think that one of the things too, when I started off in my career, big shout out to Pat Hare, who ran the REMAX office I was at. He's a great mentor, helped me out immensely. He sat down and he used to hit the phones, but he actually used to open up a phone book, right? Like back in the day, he actually hit the phones, and what he did. And I guess the best way to say it is find out whatever that number is. So what he would do is he would know, and don't quote me on these numbers, and Pat's an accountant. So if he hears this, he'll definitely quote me on all this stuff, but whatever I remember is he'd make like, whatever it was, $5,000 every yes that he got. And he knew that he'd probably get 1 in 100 just straight out of a phone book. What he did was really creative though, is if he called 20 people, he would figure it out. He's like, I make $50 a call, whatever that number is. So he may sit there for 2 or 3 hours, and then he called 25 people and struck out. But then he put that he made $1,250 that day, because he knew that eventually it was 1 in 10. So you'd look down, and the next day he'd be like, oh, I made $1,250. That's not bad. Then the next day he'd come back and he'd do it again, and he made another $1,250, whatever the number was, because he knew that if he talked to 1 in 100 was his number, he'd make $5,000. He still paid himself for the time that he put in. And he said that really changed his mentality. So for anybody that's doing this to start off with, figure out what the average sales price is in your area. If you talk to 100 people, what that looks like. And then at the end of the day, you're still paying yourself. And I think that's one way when I started off that I stayed motivated, because I was newer and I didn't know. I'm like, is this actually going to work? And then I started landing started getting some stuff. And that was big. That was some great advice that I took, is paying yourself for the strikeouts, even because they're getting you closer to the yes. I think a lot of people don't think of it that way.
Yeah, it's so true. It's funny how you find stuff that other people have said, and it's the same stuff. Like, I'm like that. Like, I think about the hours that I put in, I pay myself for the hours, because I know my ratios. I know my numbers. Like you said, if it's 1 in 100, that's my ratio. If it's 1 in 1,000, that's my ratio. And I'll just figure it out. Everyone figures out their own ratio. And, your ratios always improve because you get better, right?
Exactly.
So like, it might be 1 in 100 today, but, in 2 years' time or a year's time, it might be 1 in 80. And then it might be 1 in 70 and 1 in 50, right? So now it's 2 in 100. So yeah, it's just interesting how your mentor, because same, we've all got mentors. I got taught something very similar, and it's something I hold with me to this day. That I always pay myself for, even the, not mistakes, but just the legwork that you do, right? Hey, thanks for listening to this episode. Now, before you go, we're giving access to a private training we did where we revealed the top 3 niches to get listings today completely for free. So if you want access, you can go and download that training at eliteagentsecrets.com. We're regularly releasing new trainings, guides, and cheat sheets, so make sure to head over to eliteagentsecrets.com and sign up so you don't miss out.